Well, you just have like had like a sinking feeling, I suppose, and I thought they wouldn't call me in for nothing. Yeah, your whole life sort of just collapses in front of your eyes, I guess. I was like thinking about what I'd lost rather than what I'd gained, which was a life essentially, you know, a life to see the girls grow up. Wasn't sure if this was going to upset me, but obviously. Hi, so Tom Drury. I've been a member here at Gusto Fit Hub for about 5 years. Fitness has always been important to me, albeit I've not always listened to my body, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I've always played football, cricket, any sport really, you name it. And throughout all that period of time I've had health challenges, autoimmune diseases, and I thought I'd just like to share that with you all to see if you think it's useful or not really, I guess. I guess I'd worked at Burger King for a few years, and you know, a few of the lads, shouldn't really quote them on camera, should I, but there you go. A few of the lads had sort of like digestive issues and stuff, and I noticed after like a heavy night or whatever, you know, my guts would be churning a bit and stuff like that. And I went to the doctors initially and they said, oh, you've just got IBS, don't worry about it, it's just intolerances sort of thing. So I took the pills that they gave me for a bit. They didn't really do anything, if I'm honest. So I just stopped and thought, oh, I'll be alright, I'll just go away. And then went out to uni. Obviously I'd finished working by then, so you thought, oh, well, cut out that bad food, but you effectively just replace one bad food with another bad food, another, you know, the uni lifestyle, as it were. And yeah, my symptoms were sort of gradually getting worse, but livable, if that makes sense. So, you know, I was in discomfort and things like that, but it wasn't for days on end. So you just thought, oh, it's just a bad tummy ache, you're alright, you won't, you know, nothing will really happen. And then basically just started getting really bad cramps, is the best way of describing it, like just double over in pain. And so calling the doctor again, and yeah, it was like a period of probably 6 months. They were doing loads of blood tests, didn't quite know what was wrong with me. Eventually had a colonoscopy and they sort of went, oh well, you've got ulcerative colitis. And back then I was like, well, what's that then? And they just sort of said, oh, it's an autoimmune disease, we don't know what causes it, but it's inflammation of the gut. And yeah, you're pretty much stuck with it. So take these pills and see what you can do about it. And that's sort of where it all began really. So just coming out of uni, when you get that news and you're a bit confused really, but I suppose I was young enough to be ignorant of what it actually meant, and so I've always been pretty good at compartmentalising, you know, things that happen, and you just put it in a box to one side and go, oh, it's alright, I won't let that affect me, rather than thinking, right, how is that affecting me, and what mechanisms can you use to make yourself as healthy as possible given that news really. So carried on sort of into my mid-20s without thinking, oh, this is alright, I can sort of live with it really. You know, one of the side effects is fatigue, so you feel tired but you think, well, you know, you're working hard and burning a candle at both ends, you think you can get through it really. A few things happened in my personal life and just started really, my symptoms just blew up basically, like serious. Those cramps went on for longer, you know, I had flare-ups for weeks on end, just felt awful basically, just really wiped out all the time. It was just sort of enough to get to work, get through another week at work, and then spend the weekend just trying to rest up and then go again the next week. And so by this time I thought, oh, I need to do something, but you just go to the doctors and they effectively say, oh, just take this drug, oh, we'll try it on a stronger drug here, we'll try on a stronger drug there. And I sort of got to the point where, well, at this rate, the only thing that's going to happen is my symptoms are going to slowly sort of get to the point where there's not much else they can do for me, and they always talk about surgery as being sort of the end point for people with colitis or Crohn's, and you think, well I basically thought being pig-headed, that right, I'm not going to let that happen to me, then I'm going to try and do something about it. So I'd always been fairly fit, and as I say, I did play football through this period and cricket and stuff, and you sort of, you know, you can put on a brave face as players for a day and go, yeah, everything's alright, no worries, and sort of laugh it off and take a few jokes that invariably come with all these things. So yeah, I guess you just sort of get used to it really, and you just become, it's the new normal then. You feel tired, you don't care because you always feel tired, so what's the difference type of thing. did go to the gym a bit, but I suppose in your early 20s you're a bit bulletproof, aren't you? You can have a bad lifestyle and then still lift heavy in the gym, as it were. So it was a difficult time, but you know, you get through it, I guess. In terms of probably not the best coping strategies to do it, it's just more brute force and nobody, you're not going to break down on me, I'll show you the way type of thing. And then I was fortunate enough to meet Jo, and she's a celiac, so she had said, you know, after obviously a couple of months dating and whatever, and she noticed, you know, it's difficult to hide your symptoms when you're going out, isn't it? So she was like, oh, have you ever thought that you might be intolerant to food as well? And this is where, you know, the doctors always say, oh no, diet hasn't got anything to do with it, it's an autoimmune disease, you know, take these pills and go on, you know, it's not really related. And because Jo was a celiac, she obviously ate gluten-free bread and stuff like that, so we decided to, we'll try just cutting out wheat, because I did eat a lot of wheat. And we cut that out, my symptoms, you know, they didn't get better, but they improved, and it was like, oh, maybe there is something to this after all. So then I was sort of got into the habit of really listening to my body's response to the diet, essentially. And if I had symptoms the next day, it was like, right, don't have that and see how it goes. And eventually we sort of came to like a diet, basically just foods that I could eat and foods that I'd avoid, because I knew they'd flare up my symptoms. One of the upsides of having colitis is that you don't really put on weight, because your digestive system is in such poor health in terms of good bacteria, so you actually struggle to absorb nutrients. But yeah, as I say, we eventually got to a stage of a diet that fitted where I was, and then I can't remember what, I think it was a guy at work, he mentioned to me about sort of the gut microbiome, and that's then just sort of got me thinking, because obviously in all of this you had the doctors saying, oh, take this stronger drug, take this stronger drug, and part of me thought there's got to be a more natural way of easing your gut and understanding what was actually going on, because they couldn't tell me what had caused it. So I was naturally interested to say, well, if you don't know what caused it, there's nothing to say that diet and exercise and other things could actually, you know, be a different kind of medication, I suppose, for the whole thing. So yeah, so we moved to Bromsgrove, and obviously, you know, we go way back. We used to PT with Rich, and Richard said, oh, I'd start in the gym. It was like, oh, it sort of felt like a bit like fate, really. So obviously you got in touch and you said, yeah, come on down, and I've been here ever since. So, and I think with all those factors, so starting to look at diet and listen to my body and understand, right, if I'm going to eat the right foods, try and keep my symptoms the best, then, you know, let's step up the exercise regimen as well. That's not to say I didn't do any exercise, but I'd go through periods, as I suppose most people do, of inactivity, whereas I'd always felt better when I was active. Like the gym has always been really cathartic for me. It helps clear my mind, so I suppose it's that mental health as well. Because that was always one of the hardest things, when you were flaring and, you know, your symptoms are rubbish and feel naff. It's not only your physical health that's affected, your mental health is very, very much affected, and you know, you have pretty dark days where you just think, oh, this is just sucks, like you've got no quality of life here. You know, you're scared to leave the house, or you're constantly thinking, if you arrive somewhere, right, where's the toilet, just in case. So yeah, like that mental baggage you carry around everywhere, really, I guess, or I did. And as I say, the gym was always a way of clearing that. It was at least an hour, come in, don't think about that, and then funny enough, you know, I'd go, it would just help me just like de-stress, just get rid of all of that, and then I could go home and have a period where I didn't think about it really, because, you know, I guess looking back with the benefit of hindsight, you go, I've pretty much just, it was always on my mind. Like, I'd always think, oh, how's my body feeling today? And so yeah, it started here, and I've, you know, been here ever since and loved it. And I think, you know, I was getting to a place where I put on weight for the first time in God knows how long. You know, I went from strength to strength really. Being here, put on weight, got up to like 82, 83 kilos. Had a couple of children, and was really happy. Like, I thought everything was going really well. Felt brilliant physically, probably the fittest I've ever been. And then as part of my colitis treatment, you get yearly colonoscopies. Had a colonoscopy last May, and then, you know, thought, oh, it's alright, you know, that was the thing. Back sort of my mid-20s, they did a colonoscopy and they said you're moderate to severe in terms of how bad the inflammation is, and I've got all that with the help of you know, working out here 3 times a week all the time, good diet, you know, being happy I suppose is the key, isn't it, with Joe and the girls and all of that sort of stuff. The sort of previous colonoscopy to that, they had classed it as quiescent disease, which is basically pretty much remission. So that's sort of where you want to be as someone with an IBD. You want to be as near in remission ideally, or as close to remission as you can, because that means your symptoms are what everyone else would class as normal. So I had this colonoscopy in May, and I felt alright. I'd had a bit, like my symptoms had been a bit funny in the preceding months, but nothing major, nothing that I thought, oh, this is something's amiss here. I had the colonoscopy, didn't think anything of it, hadn't heard anything for sort of 3 weeks, and if you don't hear anything, no news is good news. And then got a call on the Friday, and it was Worcester, and they said, oh, can you come in to see Dr. Reese, who is my gastroenterologist? And I thought, well, you just have had a sinking feeling, I suppose, and I thought they wouldn't call me in for nothing. So I went in, and they basically said, we think you've got bowel cancer, which sucked. So yeah, your whole life sort of just collapses in front of your eyes, I guess. You think, like, Neve was only 4 months at the time, Esme was 2, and you know, life was good, man. Like, I was super happy, and then you get that news, and that's it. Like, everything falls apart. So I don't know. We just went home and cried, basically, I think. From then, it was just a case of, right, what do we do then to beat it? You know, as much as it was serious, like a worry, I suppose. You know, there's a lot of unknowns at that stage. Like, you're still waiting for further blood tests and then the CT scan and all of this. And throughout all of that, they always say, we think you have cancer. They won't say you will until they do all the tests. So, you know, you're trying to sleep at night, and that's all that's racing through your head. So, you know, as it happened, I did have cancer, but I was lucky enough that I was getting regularly monitored. So they had a CT scan, said it was stage 1, so pretty much as early as you can catch it, from what I understand. And then it was a case of, what do we do about it? Speaking to my consultant that I was put in touch with, I thought I was going in there and they sort of gave me a couple of options, and basically went in there and he said, you've got one option, and that's what's called a panproctocolectomy, which is basically the entire removal of your colon. And, you know, not being that old yet, you think, you know, I'm still young, what's that going to do to me physically? You know, I still want to be active, you know, I don't want to let it hold me back. So, you know, it's scary ultimately. That's the thing. You think, oh, am I gonna? It's a big physical change, obviously, and I suppose it wasn't so much the operation, because you know, what they can do now is just incredible. Like, the surgeons are just amazing, just blows your mind. It was more about the recovery and, would I still feel like me? That was the question that kept rolling around in my head. Would I still feel like me? And yeah, so we had that chat, and obviously it was a case of, well, you know, the main thing is that I'm still here for Joe and the girls, and that was it really. So, you know, there wasn't a decision to be made. It was, right, well, book me in. And I don't know, I basically just hit the gym. It was like really hard. I suppose I was working out angry back then. Like, wanted to show that I'm alright type of thing still effectively saying I'm okay. Like, it was almost like disbelief, I guess. And, you know, 7.5 minute 2K row or something. So,
yeah, man, that's some impressive stuff going on, man. That's some impressive stuff.
It took 2 weeks before the initial sort of, we think you've got it, to, yeah, you've got it, and this is the plan. Okay. So yeah, holding that in my head, like in it as a family unit, until we had sort of figured out what was going on, was tough. You know, you wanted to tell your family, you wanted to tell your friends, and you feel like you can't. They basically just said, look, you know, the fitter you are going into the quicker your recovery is. So that was my focus. It was, right, well, just get as fit as you possibly can. Yeah, you know, you still feel alright. That's the funny thing. Obviously, physically you feel good, but mentally you're a mess because you know what's going on. you know, you've been told. So yeah, it was just trying to get fit, and then, you know, D-Day comes and
Yeah.
So yeah, what was that? End of July, had the op.
Yeah.
And then I sort of had to think my first class back was the end of October. That was the form class. Like, I'd obviously popped in. I did a workout probably 8 weeks after the op. Like just a Tabata one in the kitchen, and my legs were ruined. And like, I could barely walk for about a week. I was trying to push the girls down in the buggy, the hill, and my legs were like sticks. Just didn't have. It felt like I didn't have kneecaps. So clearly, I'd lost a lot of weight, and that was the thing. Like the first 6 weeks were rough. Following the op, like your body obviously has to get used to its new plumbing. So kind of constantly bloated, and all of that sort of stuff. And it just. Well, I mean, it sucked. Like I was in like loads of pain, and there's not really, and on top of that, you can't do anything. Like you're so physically like worn out from the op. Like the op went really well. It confirmed like the cancer hadn't spread, so I didn't need any chemotherapy or any of that. And so it was just physical recovery from that point, or so I thought. And then yeah, I was like they said, oh, you'll lose some weight. And I was losing weight and quickly, and I thought, like, what is going on here? Like, I'm losing weight hand over fist. Like, I went down to, I probably haven't weighed that, like, I went down to like just under 70 kilos, and I haven't been that light since like I was a kid, so I thought something's up there. And then just noticed I was really thirsty all the time. And like James is obviously diabetic, so I thought, oh well, I'll just do a blood test. So I did a blood test, and my blood sugars was through the roof. So I got in touch with the doctors. They did more tests and were like, oh yeah, you're like your twin. Then you've got diabetes, but you know, when you're my age, you think it doesn't happen, but later onset type 1, and that's it. So that was just another added complication, I guess. Found out I had type 1, as well as then, you know, I thought my recovery was going well for the first 2 weeks. I say well, like you felt like you were getting somewhere, and then like the pain just started flaring up. I was like, what is going on here? And then I had as it happens, I had a catch up with a consultant, and as we were driving over to the hospital, like I was sitting there speaking to Jamie, like, you know, this is absolutely agony. Like I could feel every bump in the road, and then went in for this consultant's appointment, and he was like, oh, let's have a look at your wound, and he basically just had a look and went, oh, I think you've got an abscess. So I had an abscess created in the wound, and that was what was causing all this issue. So I had a drain for 2 weeks, and to try and get rid of all the excess fluid from, basically they just thought it was blood left over effectively from the operation itself that hadn't been like sucked out, I suppose. It just felt like, I suppose then, it was like bad news on bad news on bad news, and it was like flipping it, like what is going on? And I was really struggling like mentally then. Like physically I wasn't in good shape, but I knew the reasons why, but mentally I suppose I couldn't hack it really. I was really, really struggling. You know, you come home and you think, oh, I'm back home now, that's alright, whereas in the hospital you're a bit like in your own bubble sort of thing, because there's not really much to do other than be in your room, potentially going to have a walk around the ward. Whereas you get home and you think that's alright, but you know, I couldn't be the active dad I was before. You know, and you know, the girls were asking to be picked up, and I couldn't pick them up. You know, I'd been advised, you know, no heavy lifting for 6 weeks. So you know, you then feel like a spare part. You're just sitting around existing really, and that was mentally really, really challenging. Like we're having a lot of conversations, and I was, you know, all I had was time to think, I guess. So I was thinking, and it sort of struck me one day after a conversation with Joe that I was focusing on the wrong thing. You know, that's why I was, you know, it was negative thoughts that were predominant in my head, and that was the problem. I was like thinking about what I'd lost rather than what I'd gained, which was a life essentially. You know, a life to see the girls grow up and all of that, and that was a real like watershed moment for me, I suppose, because it was like, oh, you know, I can either sit here and be miserable the rest of my life, or I can just accept what's happened, move on, and focus that I am here and that I will get better. And that was sort of the start of, I don't know, my journey to recovery, really. You know, I really struggled with my sense of self through that period. You know, that goes back to that question around would I feel like me, and if I'm honest, I didn't. And that wasn't just because, you know, I'd lost a load of weight so I looked different. It was, you know, I was thinking about how I was acting and stuff, and it didn't feel like me. Like, I was thinking I didn't like the person. You know, you sort of have this like weird out-of-body experience looking back on things, don't you? And you think, who was that? Because that's not me. Like, that's something I'm clearly letting the negative thoughts rule how I'm behaving and all of that. And you know, the people close to me don't deserve that. So it was really about focusing then on, right, well, just be positive. No, you're still here. You've got, you know, everything to live for essentially, and everyone. The doctors and the nurses have said you could live a relatively normal life. It was then that I thought, right, well, I've lied around long enough, and I could then, you know, you had periods where you weren't always tired, like you could walk down the stairs and not go, just have a sit down. You're able to it, so I just started doing like a short walk each day, and that was basically it then. Like, I'd always felt like I'd achieved something, and then like each day you'd go a bit longer, and then Joe and the girls would join me when I was quick enough, and yeah, we sort of got to that stage where I could go on a pretty decent walk, and that really helped, both physically and mentally, really, because just being back outside in the fresh air and all of that really helps. Like, I've always been, if I'm outside, it always calms me down. Always has. Like, even when I was younger, I used to go for walks, and it would always just help, you know, me digest what was going on, I suppose. And came back here and was like, you know, I'd like to restart the classes if I could. You know, it was obvious that I couldn't just come back and pick up where I left off. So, you know, I guess you've always been really good at scaling. So you just said, right, well, come in and we'll focus on these few things. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised at how quickly it sort of came back, really. Obviously, now that I was being treated for the diabetes, I'd started to put on a bit of weight anyway. And then coming back here properly, and I'd noticed that even if I was, you know, obviously heavily scaled, wasn't doing anywhere near the weight that I was previous, that was all helping, and like week on week I could feel like a real gradual improvement, and that was what I wanted to see, really. It was like just effectively keep moving on down the road so you could get back to where I was, and that was my goal. It was like, right, I was, you know, 82, 83 kilos before the op, and that was my mission then. It was like, right, I'm going to get back to that weight. So it was you know, again, it was just a case of ensuring that I didn't overdo it. I think there was a few weeks where I didn't come in 3 times a week because my body I just had to listen to my body, and my body was like, right, you need to rest this week. So then, but as I said, it sort of came back loads quicker than I expected. I wasn't quite sure what to think, and I put on the first sort of 8 kilos in a flash, and it sort of got back to my normal weight, I suppose, if I didn't work out how much I'd weigh and all that. And then, you know, it took another, 6-7 months until I got to 82 kilos again, and I think I'm probably fitter than I was before the op. I suppose having that goal was like just a big thing for me to say I could come back from it. Like, the fitter I got, the better I felt, which sounds stupid because that's the whole point of it, isn't it? But, you know, each week became cathartic, and then being back at work, and then being back in the gym, and again, that was like, I try and think about what I'm grateful for, which is a horrible cliche, isn't it? Jeez. And that was, right, and the daft thing that I came up with that made me really happy was that I'm living a normal life. And that was the one thing that I was super scared of, really, before the op, would I be able to do all the things that I did before? So being able to work, being able to come to the gym, see friends, do things as a family, all of that sort of stuff, which I guess, you know, you take for granted when your health's alright, was great. And it was, you know, you were living life again. And I suppose that, you know, again, I felt the happiness. I like to think I'm quite upbeat, you know, and and try and see the best of situations. So I felt that I sort of regained my sense of self, and yeah, just trying to go from strength to strength really. I was acutely aware that in my recovery everyone was saying, how are you feeling, and I'm getting upset again now. Like, no one was asking Joe. She did everything while I was recovering, and yeah, it was just about, if Joe can be that strong, then I'm going to be strong for her type of thing as much as I can.
Yeah,
yeah, and then you know, I've been sort of post-op, well, it's almost a year now, which is just crazy to think.
Yeah.
So we, me and my three brothers are planning to do 3 peaks. Well, a week Friday, which is exciting and terrifying at the same time. But I suppose it's wanting to sort of show myself, and show others who are going through health challenges that, you know, you can come out the other side, I guess, and there is still a life to be lived, and all of that. And yeah, like, I don't know. You don't want to say, oh, inspire a few people, because that feels a bit big-headed. Like, I can't believe the amount we've raised.
It's amazing, man.
We've raised what?
I've got a link here, hasn't it?
Yeah, link here. 2,600 so far. So you know, if we can get close to 3, then that would be far beyond our wildest dreams, really. And yeah, looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really good way to sort of say, you know, I've been through the darkest time in my life, and I've got through the other side, and I've still got lots to live for, and that's really what I think I would like people to listen to and be aware of. You know, things will happen in life that are really hard to deal with, but there is ways of dealing with it, and for me that's been, you know, having good support structure around me, but also making sure that I take time for myself to get myself right physically, because I find out, you know, exercise is great for body and mind, and that's certainly what I've taken from this whole experience, really.
Yeah, cool.
Don't really want 10 minutes of me rambling on, do you? We'll see. So Tom Drury, I've been a member at CrossFit Gusto for, I've called it the wrong thing. Outtake.
That's an outtake.
If you've got a straight out Gusto t-shirt, you know what we're talking about. Pretty much ever since it opened, one of the original members, I like to think. You'll cut that bit, that was awful. And pretty much ever since it opened, I'm still an average, I've done it again. Can I say CrossFit or not?
Yeah.
Obviously, me and Joe got married, moved to Bromsgrove. No, we didn't. We moved to Bromsgrove and then got married about 3 years later, but sorry, Joe. It's like, you go, and this is my story, but who gives a shit?